Chapter 61. It's You. We had to tell the Trons what was happening. There are just some things you can't hide from your neighbours, and especially those that are more like family. And especially not after I got Jed to lie to the police for me. The next day, Nora's face was all over the morning paper and then on the evening news. They said she was absconding from the safe haven and had last been seen boarding the 787 Sorrento to Safety Beach bus, which meant authorities were looking for her all the way up and down the Mornington Peninsula. And that night, we invited the Trons over for dinner, and only 3 of them got the shock of their lives when they walked through the door and saw Nora sitting at our table. V slammed her plate of Pop's favourite spring rolls onto the table and instantly turned to Jed. "You knew! You lied to me!" she whisper-shouted. I guess she knew because Jed wasn't wearing the same look of shock and horror as his sister, and the fact that Penny had visited their house yesterday too, following up on Jed and Aiden's not too accurate eyewitness sighting of Nora.
"Kids, go and play outside,"
Annika sighed, and so Jed, Sam, Lily and I trudged out to hang out in Pop's flat, which had become Nora's hideout. I remembered months ago when Aiden had explained to Sam that a conspiracy was like a secret, and I thought of that again as we walked into Pop's place. Lily collapsing on the couch, folding her arms and raising an eyebrow at us before narrowing her gaze at Jed. "How does it feel to be a criminal, Van?" When Jed didn't say anything, Lily kept prodding. "You've really gone and done it now. Mia's going to kill you." I spun around and pushed the fly screen door open. Banging back into the night, I plopped myself down on Pop's ramp, my legs dangling through the railing, and listened as Jed spat, "Get lost, you!" and came out to sit beside me. "You okay, Fred?" he asked. I was, and I wasn't, which I guess was the way you feel when you're doing the right thing by doing something illegal. "V's gonna hate me now," I said weakly, "and you will too. I shouldn't have asked you and Aiden to lie for us." Jed reached over and tugged on my t-shirt sleeve. "Me won't hate you," he said. "No, she'll think I made you her good boy," I started to say, but Jed shook his head. "She'll know I had to, because it's you." I turned to him then, remembering what he'd said by the bike sheds the other day too. "What does that mean? Am I so scary?" I nudged his shoulder, though he'd smile back at me and maybe laugh, but instead Jed turned his head and looked at me. "No, it means that she loves you, and I thought Jed was going to say something else, but he didn't. Instead, he shrugged and looked down at his feet and then back up at me. And when he did, he was blushing. I went red too. I was just about to speak when we heard the door to the big house open and voices making their way down the garden to us. It was Annika and V, walking either side of Nora, each with a hand on her arm to steady her as she waddled along the path. "Get in the flat," V said when she was closer, and Jed and I stood up and did as we were told. Sam and Lily were still sitting on the couch, but Annika waved them away to make room for Nora and her big belly. Nora made a whoosh sound as she sat down and started rubbing her round belly. When I saw Annika watching the movement, I went to stand beside her, and without saying a word, she wrapped both her arms around my shoulders and planted a kiss atop my head. I reached my hands up and held onto hers, both of us clinging to each other. "We're going to help," V declared, and I saw Jed let out a deep breath. "Isn't she, like, on the run from the police?" Lily said, and V shook her head at her daughter. "It's more complicated than that," V started to say. "Is this a Vietnam thing?" Lily butted in. "None of this is like the war, me." "This is a decency thing," V snapped, holding a hand up before Lily could say any more. "I believe we have a right on our side. And your father does too. Same with Annika and Luca." "They do?" Jed said, and V's eyes swung around to where he was leaning against the wall on the other side of the room. "It's why I—" "Not now, Van," V snapped again. "I will never be able to replay all of you," Nora said, and V went to her, bent down and held both her hands and stared up into Nora's face. "People helped me and mine once, when we needed them. When they probably didn't have to." V nodded and squeezed Nora's hands. "This is how the world heals, I think. One small act at a time."